Whitekirk in East Lothian was the venue for the penultimate Optical Express Pro Golf Tour event for 2011, and after some shocking weather in day one, things had dried up a little for day two, although there was still a very strong wind blowing into the faces of the players on the first. But that didn't put off John Henry. He had a marvellous 2 under par first day. He was sitting in second place, tied with this man, a local pro from the club, Paul Wardell. Not playing as much competitive golf as he would like perhaps these days, but a 2 under par on day one, using his local knowledge to the full. And they were just one shot behind this man, young Mark Loftus, the only man to break 70 in day one. Could he keep up his form into the second day? Now, for a par 5, the first is only 492 yards, but Jamie Carver here, well, he was about as close to the green in 2 as we saw with the cameras, and still short. He had a 75 on day one, he was +3, and you could see the wind was taking its toll on players and equipment alike. Although we could see that Mark Kerr's bag was standing up to the conditions. Mark was 4 over after day one, and on the green for 3 at the first, this to start with a birdie, and look at the amount of break he had to give it, and it was in all the way. A very positive start for the man from Murrayfield. Back to 3 over, and perhaps with a little spring in his step. Well, we saw Jamie's approach. Jamie Carver had this also for a birdie 4 on the first to move to 2 over par for the tournament, and it went. And well, there were certainly chances to make up some shots despite the wind. Moving out though to the 8th, and a very tricky par 3, only 150 yards but into the wind. But this was Sean McAllister from Craigielaw, getting his second 2 of the day, which meant he was level par for today and 1 over for the tournament, and playing very nicely. Well, this was more akin to the length of putt we were seeing on the 8th though. Tied for a victory last time out, Neil Fennick from Dunbar. This for his 2. He ran it fairly close, but he saw that one in. And he was 3 over today and 3 over for the tournament. Back to the first, Graham Rankin. Well, a man with plenty of experience on the golf course. Again, just short and firing that into the wind, looking for a little bit of check, and he got it. And he too would walk up and look over his birdie putt and roll it in with confidence. And that moved them to -1 for the day and +1 for the tournament. Very packed leaderboard this time around, but a man that you would expect to see up there, Paul McKechnie. Now, I told you the 8th was tricky. This is actually his 3rd shot. And well, he would pop that in for a bogey 4 to stay level for the day and level for the tournament at this point. He was out for a hat-trick of victories on the tour this season and going along very steadily. Playing alongside Paul was Graham Fox, who also had a level par 72 on day one. But he was 1 over here on the 8th, looking to roll this in to get back to level par. Just coming up short, but he got his par 3 and he was at 1 over. Back up on the tee in the group behind, James McGee. Well, he did a 1 under par 71 on day 1, but couldn't keep that form going into day 2. At this point he was already 4 over for his round, and he would finish the day at 8 over for the tournament, just inside the top 20. His playing partners, well, joint winner last time round at the Roxburgh, David Orr. He was up there in the bushes. He was already 2 over for the day, and he didn't sink that putt, but he finished the tournament at +3 and a tie for 8th. Alongside him, being sociable, joining him up in the bushes, Keir McNichol. He was also 1 under in day 1, but but he would finish the tournament at 7 over and a tie for 16th. The wind just getting the better of the man from Carnoustie. Further out on the course, on the par 3 14th, well, this was Jamie Carver. We saw him sink a great putt for birdie on the first. This putt, however, was only for a par, and he would finish the tournament at 8 over. And despite the smiles, a little bit further down the leaderboard than he would have liked. Playing alongside Nigel Scott-Smith. Now Nigel, he had this putt for a birdie, and this would be second birdie in 3 holes, but really they were the only highlights for Nigel, and he finished down the leaderboard, but made sure he kept his best for the camera. Now back at the 8th, the overnight leader Mark Loftus. Well, this was his 3rd shot, and he hadn't had a great start to the day. Running that one up close, and he would see it in for a 4, but unfortunately there was too many shots for Mark. On his front 9 in day 2, he was out in 42, and he slipped away from the lead. He finished the tournament at 5 over par in 13th place. But he should take encouragement from his performance in day 1, and we might see him back up at the leaderboard again next time around. Also on the 8th, in the last group out, local man Paul Wardell. This was to save his par. He missed it, but he was level for the day after knocking that in, and still 2 under for the tournament, and looking for a victory on home soil. The last man in the group, John Henry, the big hitter from Clydebank. Well, he had this for his par, and he saw it in, although he was 2 over for the day, level for the tournament, but still very much in the mix. And one man who was making a move up the leaderboard, Kevin McAlpine. Here he is on the 13th, having just eagled the 12th. This his birdie putt, and he was now 4 under for the tournament, in the lead, and playing very well indeed. Out now to the tricky par 3 17th. And here we have the very experienced Lorne Kelly, and he'd been very steady over both days. And again here at the 220 yard par 3, Lorne found the green. He was level on day 2 and finished at 2 over for the tournament in 7th place. Playing alongside Lorne was Stuart Savage, and Stuart at this point was going very nicely also. He was level par at this point for the day, 2 over for the tournament, and a chip and a putt would keep him that way, but a double bogey on the last meant that he would slip down the leaderboard and finish in a tie for 11th at 4 over par. The 18th though was a tough test to finish on, downhill and downwind, and with a treacherous green, the pin at the back on a real slope, and that was Sean McAllister, and that was a good effort for his birdie. But as it was, he got his par, he was 1 under for the day, and he finished the tournament level par in a tie for 3rd, and moved himself on the money list for the year, up from 25th to 12th. A good couple of days work for Sean. Now, joint winner last time out, Neil Fenwick. Well, we're showing you this putt. I think his remark was there's an elephant buried under this green, after he played this long putt, and just a couple of inches offline, halfway down, leads you to be 6 or 7 feet offline by the time you reach the hole. You can see that from his reaction. He finished at 3 over and a tie for 8th, tying again with David Orr. Now Kevin McAlpine, we saw him sinking those putts and on a run, but unfortunately he finished with a 7 to be 1 over for the tournament and a tie for 5th. But he too, a good couple of days work, and he moved up 9 places in the money list for the year. Graham Fox, well, he too had a fairly lengthy putt, and if you were going to make sure it was over that little ridge, it was going to keep on going and going. And unfortunately Graham bogeyed the last, and he finished 3 over for today and the tournament, and a tie for 8th place. playing alongside Alan Lockhart, who'd gone about his business in a quiet manner. And this for a par on the last to finish at 1 over in 5th and a tie with Kevin McAlpine. And Alan really has been a very consistent performer this year. But for John Henry, being up this end of the leaderboard was a bit of a novelty. Not too used to it, and just pulling that putt a little on the last. And, well, he would see that last putt in to finish at level par and a tie for 3rd. But he too making great moves up the leaderboard from 29th up to 14th in the order of merit. Now, local man Paul Wardell, he knows these greens, and a beautifully judged putt. Rolling it up close, and he would see that little putt in for a par 4. He was 1 over today, finished at 1 under for the tournament, but that was only good enough for 2nd place. Because once again, it was that man Paul McKechnie who'd put together a fantastic round on day 2 on the Optical Express Pro Golf Tour here at Whitekirk. He was 2 under par for the day, coming down the last, and that is approach shot. And you can see, well, that meant he had 2 putts for the tournament win. And he took it nice and steady with the first, making it over that ridge. Still a little bit of work to do though, just to finish it off. And the man with 2 wins in the tour already this season wasn't about to let this putt slip by, and in it went, and with that, his 3rd victory of the season on the Optical Express Pro Golf Tour. And a great round from Paul in what was tricky conditions.
Today was one of these days where I think if you make a mistake you try and make bogey, you keep the doubles and triples off the cards, and if you do get chances downwind at some of the par 5s, you've really got to make your birdies there, because standing there from kind of 110 hitting 5 you're not going to make a heap of birdies for that situation. So no, I mean, I think it was more of an attitude test than anything today.
And Paul also showing great form at Q School, where he sailed through the first stages of qualifying.
Yeah, Q School was great. Played really solidly for 4 days, which was super. The last 2 rounds I shot 5 under, 3 under when I really had to, and never made a bogey in the last 2 days either, and hit 18 greens in the last round. So ball striking wise it's been fantastic. I've been working hard with my dad as well, and we've been making a couple of wee tweaks and stuff, but it seems to be, I mean, playing out here is obviously the kind of acid test for it, and I seem to be able to take it from the practice tee onto the golf course at the moment, so long may that continue.